Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Betrayed and Became Captain America movie. Before we start, please go support KingCrownedClown for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Issei, after the faction war, was betrayed and exiled by those he once considered friends. But someone will give him a new chance at life. So he will carry the shield, which represents justice and freedom. And with the passage of time, he will gain friends, allies, and new loves. And those who betrayed him will seek to redeem their past mistakes at any cost. The beginning and new life. It all happened years ago. The great war that threatened each of the factions was taking place. Who leads the revolution ended because it is none other than the original descendant of the demon king, Rias Lucifer. I, accompanied by my friends from DXD, along with the overlords of heaven, Gregory Asgardus knows. Yokais and demons, we faced this person. For me and for Vala, who depended on the break balance, it was impossible for us to fight, since his ability was to cancel the boss dead gears. But after a lot, we evaded his ability and fought with everything. Apart from fighting against him, we had the Trihexa, since the other alliance fought him, so that we stop once and for all with him, and thus take away the control he had over the Trihexa. And seal it again. Me and Vala were able to defeat him, but he, in a dirty attack, he was going to kill the girls. I left my fight against him and went to the rescue of the girls. I received the full attack and fell to the ground. My armor cracked and let out a lot of blood, leaving me half dead right there, Riasvim said. They could have beaten me, but instead you decided to sacrifice yourself and save those brats. I laughed like crazy. In that he recovered and beat up Vala. I barely got up. I didn't see the girls coming to help me. They stared at me with angry faces. I wondered what happened. But I remembered that I had to win a battle to return home with them. Drake, how much energy do we have left? Partner, I'm sorry, but your body is at its limit. Damn. There is something I can do. There is a method, but it's likely you'll die. It doesn't matter. If they are safe, it doesn't matter. My motivation to see them happy was the trigger, and an energy was released from my body. And Drake's voice sounded saying, "Release confirmed, seal sequence released." And it resonated and said balance break. Mode explosion blaster. My armor changed to a golden one. My energies returned, and I said, "Drake, what is this? That boy is what you wanted? To save your loved ones? Your will is stronger than your anger. Your will to save them took an unexpected turn and made a new armor unlock. Excellent, with this I will protect them." I flew as high as possible. I put my hands together and expelled a lot of dragonic energy in both, as if it were a dragon shoot. But it was different. I threw the energy in the direction of the Trihexa. It did good damage, since upon impact, he made him step back and fall apart. Nobody said anything, but they still looked at me with annoyance. Drake noticed their looks, especially the brown-haired women, but he decided not to say anything, since before them there was a great powerful monster. Seeing that Issei was mercilessly attacking the Trihexa, the leaders went there and sealed him again. It didn't take long for each person there to praise all the faction overlords, but nobody praised Issei, since he lost his blast transformation and he fell without energy and fell unconscious. 2 weeks later, nobody thanked Issei. Nobody congratulated Issei. Nobody praised him. His women abandoned him. Neither Yasaka, Penemu, Gabriel, Ophis, nor Sona, nor his friends, nor his friend Kuna visited him. Nobody visited Issei. Apparently each leader was celebrating the fall of 6.6.6. But in a secret meeting that took place, each leader was there. And they talked about Haida Issei, current security. And well, I think he is useless. Pervert. But we know that he is powerful, and that represents a threat to us. Very well, it is decided. When Haida Issei wakes up, we will expel him from the clan and confiscate his sacred gear. Well, with that we conclude the meeting. You can leave, and they left from there. Azazel, Penemu, Odin, Michael, Gabriel, Yasaka, Seraphal, And in the room remained the Mao Zerzek and the Gremory group. Well, Rias, your engagement with Issei has already been annulled. Thanks Onii.sama. How all of us could have fallen in love with that perverted and useless lose Rias. But this will end in a few days. We already have the authorization of each leader. So there will be no suspicions that we did something to him. Thanks Onii.sama. 1 week later. Issei had just woken up from his coma. At that moment Drake spoke to him. Partner, how good that you wake up. Yan. Hello Drake. It's good to hear your voice. How long have I slept? 3 weeks. Wah. Don't shout so much, partner. Sorry, Drake. Where we are? Apparently we are in a hospital. Or maybe you don't remember. At the last moment you made an attack that hit the Trihexa, making him unconscious. And in the end you fell, thus ending their talk. And what happened to the girls? Issei asked. I don't know the companions. I only know that they brought you to this hospital. And since then I haven't heard anything. I see. Issei understood that they hadn't visited even once. Something that really hurt him. Issei took off his patient clothes and put on a change of clothes that were there on the chair. Issei left that hospital. No one there present gave him recognition for what he did. And Drake couldn't stop thinking about that day where the Gremory saw Issei with an angry face just for leaving the battlefield alone to go save his beloved Asia. Hours later Issei would arrive somewhere else. It's over. Hayada Issei just woke up. And is heading home. Understood, said a voice from a transmitter. And this notice to Issei's factions. So the Mao, as guardians, Seraphim, Fallen and Yukais moved to do their job against Issei. Minutes later, Issei arrived home. Upon entering he noticed that some people were gathered there. Upon entering he wanted to say hello. But a strong blow sent him flying far from the house, crashing into a wall, and what seemed to be a wall was a barrier. When I crashed, blood gushed out of my mouth. When I got up I barely looked well, and there they were. Zerzek, Seraphol, Amadeus, Ajuka, Odin, Michael, Gabriel, Azazel, Penemu, Yasaka, Bocho and the others. And some members of Sona. Like Saji and his girlfriends except Sona and Tsubaki. I rejoined Thaw as I could. Even after that fight I had in the war it continued to affect me. At the moment I said nothing, I just entered my balance break. I wanted to launch the attack, but the coward Saji caught me with the Vitra ropes and began to drain all my energy. From one moment to the next Xenovia and Kiba stabbed me. Kiba in the foot and Xenovia in the side. I only gave a scream of agonizing pain. I wanted this to be a nightmare. But it seems the pain I'm feeling makes me think that I'm not dreaming. In that everyone moves away and a ball of destruction hit me at the moment. It almost completely destroyed my armor. Only some ravages of blood sprang from it. I looked barely and saw her. Her red color like blood. The one that arrowed my heart the same instant that I saw for the first time. She had attacked me with the intention of killing. At the moment I fell to the ground semi-conscious. I looked and everyone was slowly approaching me. Kiba took me by the back trying to lift me up. I was badly hurt. I was just looking blurry. At the moment Asia approached and healed me. Only for them to mistreat me again and again. I only asked for this hell to stop. When I fell unconscious, everything happened. I woke up in the underworld. More specifically, Ajuka's laboratory. But I was chained. I turned around to see everyone there present. This time Zerzek spoke. Hello, ex-brother-in-law. You wonder why you are like this, right? I didn't answer, I just observed what they were saying. Well, you've become a hindrance to us and everyone here discussed it, and we expelled you from the factions. We freed you as a demon and also as a Red Emperor Dragon. At the moment Azazel placed an artifact on my arm and began to extract some kind of red energy. I just screamed in pain. And I said, Drake. And this one in his mental space he told me, I'm sorry, partner. At the moment they removed my glove and every dragon ligament attached to me. And then Ajuka approached and began with the extraction of pieces. That was worse. I had never felt pain like that. 8 holes in my chest were formed. At the moment I began to bleed too much. When they finally extracted the pieces, Michael did something, but I no longer felt like a demon. Rather, I felt like an ordinary human. At the moment, everyone there, they started to make fun of me, especially those whom I saved and loved with all the strength in the world. At that I screamed and told them to shut up. They betrayed me just because I left my ideal in battle just to save someone I loved with my soul. They betrayed me because I saved their pathetic asses. That left everyone silent. I just started to cry and looked at the girls. How is it possible that even when I gave everything of myself, you do this to me? A tightness hit everyone's chest. Once I swore to defend everyone I love. But it seems like all this was in vain. In everyone's minds, something made them come back to their senses. At once the women unconsciously began to cry. And they looked closely and noticed it. What's happening? Why do I feel this way? And the men, something was wrong with them. Why, their words make me feel bad. At once a click made them reconsider. But it was late. When they finally understood that what they did was the worst stupidity in the world. But when they were going to say something, I began to disappear into particles. They thought that because of the extraction of pieces and the boosted gear I was dying. Before leaving my tears, something came out that everyone saw. And I said, "Sorry for having loved you and sorry for having saved him." And I disappeared into particles. At the moment everyone said what we did, the women collapsed completely. The wings of Michael will begin to turn a little black. It seems that what he did was a sin. That day they left me for dead in the supernatural. Everyone turned their backs on me that day. But what nobody knew, and neither did I, is that humanity never turned its back on me. It seems that humanity is better than any other species. They will make their mistakes. But even if it is, they correct their mistakes in a way. A week has passed since my supposed death. But somewhere in America, I began to wake up in what seemed like a room. I woke up somewhat agitated and dizzy. I looked closely and there was no one. I wondered if I was dead until a voice in the room was present. "No. You're not dead. Eve, who are you?" And he was a person of color, and with an eye patch. "Hey, who are you?" But he didn't answer. And he said the following. Hi to Issei. 17 years old. Teenager originally from Kwa. High school student. And what he said surprised me even more. Former pillar of the supernatural factions and former bearer of the Welsh dragon. Better known as the Red Emperor Dragon. I was too surprised. I asked, "Who are you and how do you know all that? And how am I alive if I'm supposed to start disappearing into particles? How am I still alive?" He smiled and said, "First, you never died. Since when you walked in Kwa, we put a device in your clothes, which transported you from there to here by means of particles. Although let me tell you that we didn't think that you would survive." Hey. Yes. It was the first time using it. The chances of getting out alive were 30 of 70. Hey, your other question is. I'm Nick Fiery, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the last thing is that we are dedicated to protecting the world from invaders, whether they be aliens or other species. And I said, "Hey, aliens don't exist, that's a lie." He smiled and said, "Really? Then explain to me how come demons, angels and other species exist." And that left me speechless. Well, anyway, we are an organization of humans that protect the world, and you wonder why you're here, right? Well, we know who you are and your feats that you did not only to protect that bunch of traitors, but despite having been a demon you still had your humanity, and you protected it day and night. And I want you to join us. And I lowered my head. How can a useless being who lost everything help? He smiled and said, "Useless or not, you are human. And humans overcome our limits. It is not necessary to have an artifact that makes you strong. The most important thing is to have will above all. And never run away. Or in your case, you never stopped protecting someone. Despite having been a demon, your actions showed that you were more human than any living being here present." Those words reached my heart. So what do you say, child? Do you agree to join S.H.I.E.L.D. and protect humanity from any danger that threatens us? I cried that moment. Because someone offered me a better chance to live. Better when I was with them 6 months later. Apparently Nick proposed that I undergo a project called Super Soldier. Apparently they resumed an old project they did a few decades ago. They had done it with someone named Steve Rogers, nicknamed Captain America. And he died saving many people from an evil character called the Red Skull. That man earned my admiration and respect for what he did. He sacrificed himself so that some would survive. He did almost the same as me. I agreed to undergo the project, since with what I heard about Captain America, I would gladly follow in his footsteps. But apparently they made some great improvements to the new Super Soldier serum. It seems they synthesized the serum with the blood of someone named Hulk. I did not understand well what they meant, so I only submitted to the treatment. They did the same procedure as with Captain Rogers. When I came out of the machine I was taller and more muscular. And they did some tests on my new abilities for a week, and apparently they were of the better. Apparently I got super strength like the Hulk. And my great resistance, and the surprising thing is my great regeneration. So for a time I was released in combat, espionage, and the use of weapons among others. In combat I was taught by a beautiful girl. Her name was Sharon Carter. At first she was very strict in combat. She always beat me. But over time we started to get along. It seems there was attraction between us. My second teacher in espionage was Natasha Romanoff. Code name Black Widow. She taught me everything in technology and espionage. She took me on missions where she taught me how to enter a secret maximum security facility and get out of there alive. So in one mission I had to recover stolen documents, since they would be sold to Hydra. My combat suit was like that of Avengers Infinity War. Let's continue. It seems I managed alone without they would discover. And finally my third teacher in the use of weapons. Her name was Canary, another beautiful girl who taught me all the handling of weapons. And how to hide them. When we trained she got very attached to me. I don't know, but I think she did it just so Sharon would learn something that worked. Something that scared me was when I had to choose my weapon. I opted for a shield similar to Captain Rogers. The shield from Infinity Wars. At the moment Sharon shot at me. Just like what Peggy did to Captain America decades ago. That scared me and I just cursed Canary for making Sharon jealous. So Nick began to entrust me with rescue missions. Assault among others. I was almost always accompanied by Sharon. Apparently she still hasn't lost her anger for what Canary did, and that was that she kissed me. The act for which she shot me when I chose my weapon, no matter how much I explained it to her, she never listened. On a mission we were both injured to the point where she helped me walk. We took shelter in a house while it was raining and it was night time. She was healing me and saying to me, stupid because I was hurting myself the most. I smiled and said, I couldn't let those bastards hurt you. At one point she slipped and our faces were very close. We began to get closer and closer. And then we both gave each other our first kiss. And we told each other what we felt for each other. That same night Sharon Carter and Captain America, better known as Issei, gave themselves body and soul, the Avengers. On a recovery mission I was assigned to me with Sharon. We fulfilled our mission. We destroyed a Hydra base. But at one point I was shot in the side. Even though it prevented them from doing something to Sharon, I felt something for her. And I wouldn't let anyone do anything to her. That same night we took refuge in a cabin. She treated my wounds. It would take an hour to heal. She removed the bullet, and I saw how she was crying. Why did you save me? She said. Why wouldn't I do it? You are someone special to me. And I would never let them hurt you. I said. With pain. A silence flooded the place. She placed bandages on my body. I felt her sweet warm hands on my body. She finished bandaging me and we looked at each other for a few seconds. My heart rate suddenly accelerated. I couldn't say anything. And neither could she. I approached to her and said, I should have done this a long time ago. I approached and took her beautiful and cute lips. She was surprised and didn't say anything. She just reciprocated the kiss. We lasted a few minutes like that. She hugged me and I did too. At the moment we separated, she was blushing. And I was just happy that she reciprocated. I spoke and said, Sharon, I know I should have said it a long time ago, and I want to say that I like you and I don't want us to be friends. Or colleagues. I want us to be more than friends. Would you like to be my girlfriend? She shed a few tears and said, Yes, I want to be your girlfriend, and what she said made me happy. I love you, Esteve. I forgot to comment, but Issei changed his identity, and in honor of the former Captain America, he chose the name Esteve Royers. Let's continue. Issei was happy to have found someone who truly loves him. Despite 2 years having passed, where they betrayed him, everyone, those he protected, they stole everything from him. Despite that, he only wants to break that pretty face that Serzek shows off. But well, that is already part of my past. Since that day, my relationship with Sharon was the best. She and I are happy, although sometimes Canario flirts with me in front of Sharon. But that doesn't seem to matter to her anymore. According to her, she wouldn't mind sharing me, as long as she is the first. Is it me, or did Sharon suggest having a harem? Wow, these 2 years have been very fast for me. And while that was happening, apparently Nick Fury wanted to form a group of people who were willing to protect the world from any threat, and that's how the Avengers project came about. That team of people who would carry the destiny of protecting the planet and all the people who make this world beautiful. And we call ourselves the Avengers, after we started looking for members for the group. I met Tony Stark. He was a millionaire, a playboy, egocentric, and a little boastful. We became friends. I told him that I wasn't really the real Captain Royers. Apparently I trusted him enough to tell him about the supernatural and part of my story, something that he didn't believe at first, but I showed him the underworld. Even though I'm not a demon anymore, I have my methods to enter that world. So in one night I showed him that the impossible becomes possible. So we entered the underworld and I showed him part of what I once lived. That left Tony amazed. When NIS finally we would go again to the human world, apparently someone recognized me. You are the security. I denied everything. But people who managed to recognize me began to arrive. And people began to scream and say that the security returned. And the worst thing is that all that reached the mouths of each leader, who quickly began to move. Luckily, and Tony that night wore his armor and quickly got us out of there. Damn. Nick will kill me, I said. He told me that nobody should recognize me. I hope and this doesn't reach the mouths of all of them. Well, now I have nothing to hide. According to I remember the words of all of them. They expelled me from their alliance and exiled me. So I only have the human world left. The one that never turned its back on me. On the contrary, I was given a second chance at life. And I have sworn to protect it at any cost. Even if I give my life, I will. And after that little incident in that place, apparently they informed all those women who betrayed me. They informed them that I was still alive. Something that gave them hope of life. And after that, apparently I began to move from the shadows. Tony and I started together as the first Avengers. And we began to recruit some members for the team. And he gave me something. According to his late father, Howard Stark, it would be good to let me have the captain's shield. And so I honored my hero. And later I heard from certain people. They are looking for me and have offered rewards to find my whereabouts. And yes, Nick scolded me. But he knew how to hide me. I'm grateful to be from S.H.I.E.L.D. After a while I moved to the capital. I was there for a long time. Until my past began to stalk me. Nick gave me some reports of a certain subject who stole something so important from the S.H.I.E.L.D. vault. Called Tesseract. When he informed me who it was, I knew that my past would stalk me. After this, something bad would happen. Apparently that damn Loki managed and escaped from his prison. This will be a headache. I just hope Asgard doesn't get involved in this. Nick informed me that Loki took a scientist who worked for them. Apparently Loki is looking for a war against humanity. I knew I couldn't do it alone. When I informed Tony of this, he gladly signed up for this mission. After a week, a certain god of lightning, I found out that Loki was on the loose, so the famous Thor came to Midgard to stop him. One night Loki attacked. Luckily I was there, so I fought him. Luckily he didn't recognize me. Black Widow came to support me, and then Tony did too. What surprises and worries me the most is that we easily defeated Loki, and he didn't put up any resistance. I knew I would have to watch him closely. That same night, when we were transporting him to the shield hangar, many lightning bolts began to fall. Tony asked him if he was afraid of lightning, and Loki said no, not lightning, but who manipulates it, yes. A noise came from the plane. From one moment to the next the hatch opened, revealing a man with long golden hair, and in his hands he had Mjolnir, the hammer that once I was worthy to take. I had heard stories of the famous Lord of Lightning, but I never thought that in front of me he would be. Tony put on his helmet in case Thor did something stupid. And yes, he hit Tony. He took Loki out of there. And an angry Tony, because they damaged his armor. I knew this would not end well. So I told Natasha to go down and wait. So I took a parachute and jumped out of the plane to prevent those two from fighting. I knew that an Asgardian went crazy in fights. And on the other hand, Tony was also dangerous with the Iron Man armor. Two large beings fighting each other. Without a doubt, someone would die if those two fought. It would take a few minutes to get there. Halfway there you could see the rays hitting a certain area. And some energy repulsions too. Anyway, my regeneration is good. If I jump from 10 meters high. Imagine when Cap jumped from the building. Let's continue. I recovered quickly and ran and reached the point where Thor charged a large ray at Tony. And Tony with his repulsor ray from his chest. Before they launched their attacks, I threw the shield, hitting Thor and Tony, thus fixing their gazes on me. Thor got angry because I interrupted his fight, and he launched himself to attack me. But I blocked his attack with my shield. Obviously the vibranium repels any attack. Listen, Thor. I know who you are and I know why you have come. But we are not the enemies. And I pointed to Loki. He is. Thus stopping their fight between those two. And explaining the situation. So we went to the hangar so that Fiery could explain the situation. During the way Thor kept looking at me. Hey you? Who, me? Yes, you. I don't know. But I feel like I know you, said Thor. Really? I think you have the wrong person. This is the first time I meet you, I said. Well, I think it's just my imagination. His I think is that. Hee hee. Wow, that was close, I said. Surely he would have recognized me from my stupid programs that I did before. So remembering those painful moments of my past, during the time that we walked, I started a good chat with Thor. He told me about how his home was. I never saw it well, so I imagine how beautiful it must be. You could say that with our friendly chat I met another friend, and possible ally in the future later on. Well, we arrived. So getting off the ship, Tony went to repair his armor. Since with the damage that Thor did to it, it would take a while to repair it. And Dr. Bagner was only investigating like in the movie. And where Black Widow interrogated Loki, discovering what his plan was from the beginning. To provoke Hulk. To create chaos. While his servants that he was controlling did the dirty work. From one moment to the next, Hawkeye along with some others began to attack the helicarrier and steal some secrets. At the moment what Loki wanted was fulfilled. Hulk began to destroy. Tony and I helped. Since the helicarrier began to descend, some of the turbines were failing, while Thor was taking care of Hulk. For some reason Thor lost, and only Hulk was left destroying everything. Tony told me, take charge. But you are the only one for now. Just do it or else I will kick your ass. Okay, Tony. You order. But first, I took care of those who were being controlled by Loki. All clear, I said. Go now. and I went at full speed to make Bruce Banassi reason. I arrived and almost killed Natasha. Before the blow reached her, I stopped it. She closed her eyes waiting for her end. She opened her eyes and saw how I stopped Hulk's blow. "Are you okay, Natasha?" I said. "Yes, I'm okay." SL moment I gave him a hard blow that sent Hulk a little far from there. "Run. He will come back and very angry." "Thanks, Esteve," she said, giving me a kiss on the lips. And to quickly run out of there. To support Fiery. When she ran away she touched her lips and said, "Finally I did it." With a blush on her cheeks. "Wow, finally in something she is sincere," I said, a little happy. But that happiness was gone when Hulk returned. "This will not be easy." Putting myself on guard, we started. And from one moment to another Hulk began to attack. The good thing is that I have good reflexes and I could dodge each blow. Remember that the super soldier serum was improved. And more when they synthesized it with a blood sample from Bruce. It does not make me stronger than him, but enough to face him. Meanwhile with Tony, he had already taken care of making the helicarrier work well. Well, this is ready. It will be better to support Issei. So going to where he was making Bruce come to reason. And with Natasha. She met Flint, who was being controlled by Loki. She gave him a big blow to the head. That made him come to reason. But when he was well, she knocked him out. Loki was in charge of escaping. But in the attempt, Agent Coulson tried to stop him. But he wounded him badly. And escaped. But not before putting Thor in the cell. Thus falling from the heights. And Loki finally fulfilled his mission. And left from there. While I could no longer against Hulk. In a careless moment. He gave me a big blow that left me almost unconscious. Before he attacked me, a plane began to shoot at him, and that made him angry and go against the plane, and so it began to descend in a nosedive. The Avengers. Hulk began to destroy the Yet. At that moment it began to fall. With the others, Iron Man arrived and saw Issei lying down and very hurt. He immediately went and helped him. At that moment, everyone managed to defend themselves with everything they could, thus attacking the invaders. "Tony, I'm taking Issei to have him examined." The doctor was amazed. "Wow, this guy should be dead. You say he fought the Hulk?" "I heard about Natasha," Tony said. "This guy must be so brave or very stupid to fight him alone. A normal person would already be dead. But despite that, he's injured." At that moment he watched as his broken bones and bruises began to heal in such an incredible way. A few minutes later, Issei woke up and saw his companions there. He asked about Thor, but he remembered that Hulk defeated him, and he didn't know where he was. Hawkeye saw him on Loki's side. He deduced that he was being manipulated by him. There were many questions, but it wasn't the time for that. In a few moments, Loki would open a portal, through the third act, and would open an alien invasion. Then he stood up, looked at Tony and asked if he could still handle the party, to which he just smiled and said, "There wouldn't be a party without me." He left and started to repair his armor. At the moment it is on. Issei put on his Kevlar suit. Flint came out of his mental trance and was released. At the moment preparing his arrows, and Natasha prepared her arsenal. Nick knew the World Councilors would do everything they could to keep this invasion a complete secret. Otherwise, they'd make decisions that were a bit outside the law. That's what they were all there for. Tony spoke. "Why didn't you tell us you were planning to use the third act to make weapons?" "I did it for the Asgardian. When it fell here, there were disasters and deaths. At that time, we realized that we are not alone in this world. If something like that attacked again, we would be lost. So, when we found the third act, we investigated it, and discovered many things and possible weapons capable of defending ourselves. And that's when I made a decision." "Which decision?" Tony asked. "We as humans should defend ourselves and not depend on other forces of nature." That's when Tony got the idea. He knew where this was going. He looked at Issei, and noticed his gaze and understood. I knew Issei was still in pain. At that Tony gets up and leaves, and asks Nick where he was going. "Like where?" "I'm going to save the world." "No, mistake. We are going to save the world." And Tony touches his friend's shoulder and says, "Come on or what?" And Issei smiles and says, "Of course." And Tony says, "Sometimes I feel like breaking your perfect teeth." And they both smile and start walking towards the quinette, along with Natasha and Flint. Nat approaches Issei and gives him a short kiss on the lips and says, "For luck." Why Issei dice? "I don't need luck if you're there for me," and both look into each other's eyes. Then Tony arrives and interrupts them and says, "If you want, I'll rent you a room," and you just blush. And Issei starts walking with the others. Flint, Nat, and Issei left in their ship, while Tony calls Jarvis and says, "Activate Mark 7. Tell him Dad is coming home," said Tony, so that Jarvis would understand his jokes. "As you order, sir." And Tony leaves the helicarrier to go to the Stark building. With Issei, he was mentally preparing himself. He has already survived a war. But now that he became human, he doesn't have powers. At that, Natasha's hands took his, as a sign that everything will be okay. "Trust yourself." And Issei smiled and took her hands, and gave her a kiss, and Nat told him, "I need someone to boost my morale," and he smiled. He took Nat, and gave her a passionate kiss. Flint continued driving, but he looked in the rearview mirror and said, "Those two took too long." Then he speaks from the cockpit, "Your captain speaks to you. We will land in 5 minutes." And they just continued ignoring him. Then they separate. Issei iba decker algo, but Nat put his fingers to his lips and said, "Shoo, we'll have more time to talk about that." I removed my fingers. He came closer and gave her a short little kiss, and said, "See you, Captain Royers," and he moved his hips. Issei blushed, smiled and said, "She tries to keep things going, even if we're about to enter an invasion. I don't regret anything." I take her shield and place it on her back. Before they arrived, the ship began to be attacked from afar, so Flint made an emergency landing. When the three arrived, they split up. Issei Daijo, Flint, you protect civilians from possible attacks. Natasha, you cover Flint's flank, and I will evacuate the others. At that moment, Flint climbed a building and began to shoot arrows at the aliens. Issei went to the center where he ordered the police to create a flank at each point to evacuate the civilians. While with Tony, he arrived at his tower. When he arrived, Loki was waiting for him. He quickly called Jarvis to activate the Mark 7, while he spoke with Loki to gain time. "I see you're having fun, but it won't last long. I see you came to appeal for the humans." "No, I actually planned to threaten you, but you need your armor for that, and she is very battered, and you have the flashlight of destiny," said Tony in a mocking tone. "Something to drink," said Tony. "Sponsored by advertising partner. Watch to learn more. Read more. Nothing will change." No, that's a threat." "What would I be afraid of?" said Loki. "Like what, too?" "The Avengers. And this one stays watching. The Avengers. That's what we call ourselves. The most powerful heroes in the world." "Yes, I've seen them," said Loki. "So this one is approaching this one. I'm not afraid of you. If something happens to the Earth, we promise to avenge it." Then he brings his weapon closer to touch him and put him under mind control. But it doesn't work. Loki gets angry and grabs Tony by the neck and throws him against the window. "Jarvis, whenever you want." At that moment the armor came out and hit Loki, going straight towards Tony, reading the scanning bracelet on his wrist, putting it on instantly, and went up the building, and there was Loki getting back up. When Tony arrived, he said, "There's one more thing. You heard a good man." His name was Phil Coulson. At that moment he attacked him and got out of there. He headed at full speed towards the sky. At that moment the portal opened, and what was revealed was the army that Loki had assembled to invade Earth. If he couldn't bring Ragnarok to the underworld, why not rule the other worlds guarded by the great Odin? At that moment Tony began to attack with everything his armor had. Dr. Bruce Banner woke up a few hours before the invasion and took a vehicle to New York. From the portal would come an immense monster that would begin to destroy a large part of the city. At that moment, a huge lightning bolt struck the monster's armor. Upon impact it would be destroyed, and Tony said, "Wow, the cavalry has arrived. Gentlemen, light the candles. Put on the music, I'll bring the party." The monster that was following Tony was getting a little close to where Issei was, Nat and Flint. At that moment Tony called the others and told them that the party was on its way. Natasha said, "I don't see that as a party." Banner arrived instantly, on a motorcycle. "Sorry I'm late." I look at Black Widow and apologize. Then they saw that the enormous Wichita was going in their direction, and Issei told him, "It would be a good time for Mr. Banner to get angry." "No need, Captain, that's my secret. I'm always angry," changing his expression, and thus transforming into the Hulk. At that point he gave a big punch that stopped the Wichita. Tony hit several missiles that would destroy him. At that moment everyone gathered together. The invaders began to surround them. Hulk gave a loud roar to intimidate them. Issei comenzo a tracer and plan. Tony, stop those who start to leave the portal. Thor, you make sure no more of those come out. Flint, you'll cover ground. Natasha and I will cover from below. And Hulk. And he looked at him. Destroys. And smiled, and they all left there. You need transportation, Tony told Flint. Thor gathered in a tower to launch his lightning bolts from afar. Hulk began to destroy some Wichitas. Loki got on a ship. Flint looked at him from a distance and said, "This is for controlling me, damn it." I instantly shoot an arrow. Loki stopped her with his hand without seeing. He looked at her and said, "This is what humans can do, ha ha ha." Flint smiled and said, "Wait." Loki looked at the arrow and began to blink, and he said, "Damn." At that moment the arrow exploded, destroying his vehicle and Loki crashing into a building. Black Widow took care of some. She took her weapon and said, "Captain, raise your shield. I need you to boost me." She ran and Issei threw it. This one got on an enemy ship, destroyed it, and began to control the ship. Issei said, "Well, it's my turn. This turn with those who were in that block. And I hear his device that communicated with the officers. Captain, some of those things surrounded those we evacuated. We need urgent support." "Where are they?" "Between 5th and 6th Avenue." "Understood. I'm going there. Don't do anything until I get there." "Understood, Captain." "Change and out." And Issei started running to get there. Minutes later, Issei arrived. I noticed Wichita what's surrounding the civilians. It looked like they were going to detonate a bomb. Issei took his shield and threw it at his feet. It fell and the detonator came out of there. Issei at full speed began to fight them all with his fists. Issei instantly found himself cornered by many of those who began to arrive. Some managed to hit him. One of them threw him to where the civilians were. Issei got up and got really angry. Something inside him activated out of nowhere, and Issei hit one of them really hard. This one left there at full speed and crashed. It was heard that something broke. It seems that Fury activates Hulk's abilities. He smiled and began to hit everyone there. Without realizing it, one of them ripped off the mask that protected him from the fire. Issei took it and threw it away. He breathed for a few seconds and recovered, and he said, "So this is how it works. I definitely feel stronger, but it's weird that I don't transform into another Hulk. I'm sure what Tony told me about the Gamma compound and the Super Soldier Serum prevent a possible transformation by the serum. It seems like it prevents the transformation and takes advantage of this, and takes all the strength and abilities that Hulk possesses. It seems I'm a human Hulk. Well, it's time to continue with this." I walk over to where his shield was lying. Upon arriving, he saw the civilians looking at him with gratitude. A girl took the shield and gave it to him, and said, "Thank you very much," I said. "She's not small at all." She smiles at him, and I raise my voice. "Please, everyone, leave here in an orderly manner. You will reach a place guarded by officers. I will leave first and protect you from them. So stay calm and follow me." I didn't realize that one of those things was still alive. The bomb that fell, it picked it up and threw it at the civilians. I instantly grabbed it and threw it as far as I could. The bomb detonated and took me with it. I flew out of the place. That was a big impact for me, since I crashed. I got up and the people left there very quickly. I told them to leave quickly and I would take cover. I stood up and covered the area from the invaders. When I reached the well-guarded place, a girl came up to me and said, "You are the security," and I said yes. "Did you know you are the Red Emperor Dragon? Thanks for saving us." I said, "It's nothing, girl," and she said, "If you are strong, why don't you wear your armor?" I said, "Years ago I stopped being the Red Dragon. The factions betrayed me and stripped me of everything." The girl said that, and I said, "It's not the time to talk about this. Go somewhere safe." The girl said, "I never believed you died. You are indestructible. With or without powers, you will still be my superhero." I smiled at such words. I rubbed his hair and said, "Thank you for believing in me." The girl and the others left, and more Wichitas started to arrive. I put my shield on my back and said, "I can keep this up all day," and I started fighting everyone who arrived. At the moment Thor arrived and gave me support. Tony contacted everyone and said, "This will never end. More and more keep arriving. We need a plan. Or else we won't be able to. That's what I said. We need to deactivate the machine that connects the portal to this dimension. But how? I thought for a moment and said, with Loki's scepter. But we don't know where it is. Let's find it and end all this. Khan Hulk. He arrived and saw Loki standing there. He attacked him and he flew away, or rather, he just crashed into a wall. Hulk approached him and Loki said to him, "Enough is enough. You are all below me. I am a god, and you silly creature. You're not going to stop me." Hulk instantly grabbed him by the feet and started whipping him like garbage, and he left from there. Natasha arrived at the tower along with Loki's scepter, the scientist who was being manipulated by Loki. He told him that there was no way to stop the machine. "It's too late. Not for me," Natasha said. She crossed the barrier that contained the machine. There it exploded, and they both flew out. The scientist was able to close the portal, but it would take a while to close. They knew that if there was a new opportunity they would invade Earth again. So they would have to take care of them, once and for all. With Nick fiery, "We cannot allow an invasion. The World Council has decided. And we will take decisive action. We will destroy the island. There will be no trace of the invading aliens. But we can't. It's too many innocent lives," said Nick. "Sometimes sacrifices are needed, and if it's to save everyone at the cost of a few lives, we'll do it. So it's too late. The missile launch has been approved, and so the Council of World Leaders made its decision. Nick would buy time. So he destroyed some planes, but one of them did go towards the island, with the Avengers. Tony knew what he had to do. He reached the missile and diverted it in the direction where the portal was closing. I'll skip to where they are saying goodbye. Thor takes Loki, and they remain as the protectors of the Earth. With nickname. I'll just tell you this. From now on, a group has been formed led by a good man who has saved the Earth. If that's all, see you later. Underworld. Many people heard about the attack in New York. The council was shocked to learn that humans had repelled an invasion, and more so knowing that a group fought against them. And an additional fact was that the girl that Issei saved spread the rumor that the security was still alive, and was really strong, and detailed what Issei was like, portraying him completely. The whole world was shocked to know that he was alive. The council mobilized and sent groups of demons to the United States to find out Issei's whereabouts. With Issei, he had gotten into something more with Natasha, so they made it official. They became boyfriend and girlfriend. Issei told her about his relationship with Canario and she accepted. She didn't mind sharing it, something that did surprise Issei, but it made him happy that they accepted him for who he was. Interrupted Moment of Peace Part 1. It had been about a week since that incident involving a manipulative Norse god and his army that was wiped out courtesy of those who wanted to eliminate the island, to keep this whole incident a secret. But to their pleasant surprise, this had become worldwide news. Those interested had been looking for a way to contact those who call themselves the Avengers. They know who we are. And we have sworn to protect the world from any possible threat. A few days ago, as Tony said, we took the week off work. And besides, we all went to eat that same day. Wow, as he said, that food was good. Thor took Loki to Asgard, and before he left I told him, "You continue and you will continue to be defeated, Loki." And I said, "What happened? Why didn't you bring Fenrir?" "Oh, it's true, Vala took him." And when he realized who he was talking to, Thor put that mask on him so he wouldn't talk, and he began to struggle and say, without anyone recognizing him, he said, "Damn security." I told him vey, in a mocking tone. And Thor took him. The group separated. But we agreed that when there was an incident or something that threatens the security of all the world, we will be there. And now we call ourselves the Avengers, the most powerful heroes on the planet. A few days had passed. My relationship with Sharon was good, but since work prevented us from seeing each other, we agreed to meet once a week. And with Natasha, since she's a spy agent, we hardly ever see each other, and if we do, we have non-stop hex, although I'd like to wake up with her by my side someday. But she always leaves when I'm sleeping, and leaves me a letter saying she can't stay for long. But oh well, who would say that romances are so complicated? Nick told me it would be best to move, so I left Manhattan and moved to the capital, and I've been living here for a month now. Nick has given me very easy missions. Almost all of them are about recovering stolen files. I don't ask anything about the mission. I just recover and deliver. Today was early in the morning and as usual I take my walk. Today was a little late, so I went out at full speed, and when I ran there it was. Every morning at this time I always run into that guy. Whenever I run I always say to him, to my left, haha this guy is very funny. He always wants to catch up with me and say, don't say it, don't say it. But I always pass by and I say, to my left. I had already finished, and I arrived and saw that guy lying down. It seems he can't stand a walk. Or true. Since I have super resistance it's easy for me. But not for him. I approached him and said, I'll call a doctor, and he said, I need new lungs. And he mentioned, you ran I don't know how many kilometers in 30 minutes, and Steve says, if I left late, yeah. Well that's a shame on your part. So go, and take another lap, and he looks at it. You already did it. You probably already did it. What unit are you in? Steve asked. The 58 Stops Rescue. But now I work with the veterans. I shook his hand and he introduced himself. Sam Wilson, and Issei said, Steve Royers, and Sam said, something told me you were. It must have been really hard in Manhattan, right? You have no idea. Issei shook his hand and Sam said, if you're going to visit me downtown and make me look good to the girl at the front desk, I'd appreciate it. Just then a sports car pulled up and the owner of the car rolled down the window, and Issei, seeing who it was, smiled, and the voice spoke, hello gentlemen, I'm looking for a living fossil. Haha how funny. I got in the car and kissed Natasha, and I told Sam, I don't always run. No. That's true, said Sam, and Natasha took off at high speed. Moments later, hello Nick, why did you want to see me? I'll get straight to the point. The factions know of your existence. They know who you are. And they are here. The incident with Manhattan revealed who you were. My informants that I recruited gave me the report that in the underworld and other places they have sent people to find you. Issei in an irritated tone said, now what do they want with me? They already took everything that I once had. What will they want from me this time I don't know, but one thing I know. They have contacted me. They want to meet with me. And Issei was surprised. And what do you plan to do? I have not answered yet. It seems that they know that I run S.H.I.E.L.D. And we monitor the activities of the whole world. It seems that they are afraid of humans. They know that we could against those things. They think we have some kind of weapon that could finish them off, and it seems they want to have an agreement with us. A kind of deal in which they will support us, and we will support them. And what are you going to do? Said Issei. I don't know. But it seems they also do this to know about you. Issei sighed and said, when will the meeting be? In a month. Apparently they want me to go to your hometown. Okay, I'll go as your escort, said Issei. But if they do anything I assure you that I will break their arm. I'm glad you're escorting me. But are you sure you want to go? You still haven't gotten over your past. Do you really want to go? You and I know that one day I would have to deal with my past. And now is when. Besides, I want to knock the Demon King's teeth out. And Nick smiled. Then I'll come for you that day. Nick said, okay, see you. Take care, and Issei left the place. Nick had to deal with the world leaders and now he will have to deal with something that is a little beyond the human mind. He sighed and said, I need a vacation, and continued with his work. Issei went out and saw Natasha in the car. They said, are you okay? He smiled and said, now I am. We are leaving. She and I went to my house, from which I would not let her leave for days. Uninterrupted Moment of Peace Part 2. It had been a week since I went to see Nick, and in that time I dedicated it to Sharon and Natasha, and as Canary is one of the best spies of S.H.I.E.L.D., she is never there. So I would say that it is not a relationship of boyfriends. Rather, what she and I arrived at was that every time we see each other we have Hex without control. We never got to a courtship or something more. It could be said that I only calm her stress and she calms mine. Right now I am alone. Natasha and Sharon had to leave. I never thought that I would do something at the same time with them too. They really left me exhausted yesterday. Hee, but oh well, what can you do? Today I decided to go out. I had nothing to do. Nick hasn't given me missions lately, and I haven't seen Tony for 2 months. I wonder what he is doing. While he was thinking, in Tony's house everything happened. The philanthropic genius thought about the future, and he thought about Manhattan. Something that he still thought about day and night. He knew that in the future what happened there could happen again. So he began to draw up a project, to which he would dedicate all his time, If they couldn't save the Earth, then the Earth would need a guardian to protect the planet. While he thought about that, something was approaching his mansion, the Mandarin, with Issei. Well, he probably doesn't have time right now. He's probably doing one of his crazy experiments. But I told him after the invasion, if something happens, call me and I'll help you. Whatever the situation, I'll help you. And I gave him a communicator. If something happens to him, the communicator would send me an electromagnetic pulse. Then I'll know his location and I'll support him. With Tony, everything would have already happened. A missile destroyed his entire mansion. In his attempt to save Peeper, he gave her his suit to protect her. His armor was destroyed. Everything, nothing was saved. Tony ended up in the sea. The good thing about the armor is that he installed the "Take Me Home" protocol. So the armor took an unconscious Tony to Rose Hill, Tennessee. He woke up and began to take his damaged armor somewhere to repair it. He took a car and remained anonymous. If the Mandarin thinks Tony is dead, so be it, while he discovers some way to deal with him and try to find the resources. While Jarvis is not active, there is no way to contact the rest that is below Tony's mansion. Tony would have already arrived at a house somewhat distant. He left the Mark 42 lying while he searched inside that house to reload his armor. Before he made a movement, a voice said, "Stop, without moving, identify yourself." And this one spoke, "You are not going to shoot me with that weapon. It would not even hurt me." The boy launched a dad attack where he destroyed part of the building. "Well, now if you ran out of projectiles," and Tony said, "If I believe you can hurt me," the boy said, "in that blue circle, what is it?" "That is an electromagnet." "And what does it feed?" said the boy. And Tony moved the lamp and the boy saw an armor and said, "It's not true. It can't be. That is Iron Man. Technically I am Iron Man." "No, technically you are dead." The boy walked and gave him a newspaper where it said that he had died. "Good point. And what happened to him?" "I put him together and I took care of him." "Are you a mechanic?" "Yes. I am. If I had invented Iron Man already, a war machine. It's time, Iron Patriot." "That is so cool." No, true." "Well, it doesn't matter. I would have added a retro panel. Retroreflective if that. And turn it into stealth mode." In that, the boy ripped off a piece of his armor. "Don't do that, because you hurt him. Don't you see that hurt you?" "Sorry, it doesn't matter, I'll fix it." And Tony asked about his parents. He answered that his father ran away when he won the lottery, and his mother just left for the restaurant. "Well, that happens sometimes. But I'll tell you now what I need. I need a laptop, a digital clock, a cell phone, a pneumatic actuator for the bazooka you have there, a map of the place, a spring, and a tuna sandwich. And what do I get? Salvation." "His name." "From whom?" "From the child that bothers you at school." The child lowers his head in sadness. "What is his name? And who told you that?" "I have what you need." And so Tony negotiated with the child, and he offered his help to Tony, in exchange for protection and salvation. Haha, the next time the bully bothers the little one, he will show him the cricket piñata. No, that is a lethal weapon. "Your name?" "Jarley, and you are?" "The mechanic." "Tony, you know what I keep thinking. Where is my sandwich?" While Tony waits for his sandwich, on the other side of the world, a meeting of faction leaders is taking place. "Very well, we are all here," mentioned a redhead. "Well, apparently this morning a communication arrived from the United States, and they have agreed to meet with us here in Kwa, but in exchange for him choosing the place." In that spoke a blonde with 9 tails. "And what did she say to you? Does she know about Issei-chan?" asked the eldest Kitsune. "Wait, Yasaka-sama. That person is one of those who does not reveal information. That same day we will talk about Issei-kun, and if he is with them we will make him return to our side. I know that deep down Issei-kun is a good person. We will win back his affection and trust." In that, a girl with purple eyes, long hair and glasses spoke. "I think he will not forgive them. After all, Issei-kun loved every girl present and not present in this room. He received physical and mental damage from all of you. The women that he loved, they said to his face that they only used him. They even took away his partner, which no one has been able to use his power. Because when they use it, the power corrupts them and destroys them from within. But you could look into Issei's eyes after everything they made him go through," said Sona Citri. the one who expelled her pawn Genshiro Saji from her clan, and the one who broke ties with her sister Serafal. She couldn't believe what she saw that same afternoon. Flashback 5 years ago. Sona-sama. What's up, Tsubaki? Apparently they called us to a meeting. It seems we're the only ones who haven't arrived yet. Hey. Now, they say it's urgent. Okay, let's go. Minutes later, she arrived, but she heard screams from the door. She looked closely from afar next to her queen and saw how all the leaders and friends were doing that to Issei. She witnessed how they tortured Issei in every way. She was surprised how her sister, whom Issei esteemed very much, was doing that to her, and Sona began to cry for what they were doing to her. Tsubaki didn't believe it. Her boyfriend Kiba and Issei's best friend had just betrayed him, and the worst thing was when Issei said those words to all of them, and how he disappeared into particles. They began to lament. Sona cried just like her queen. She couldn't believe it. Her friends and loved ones killed him that day. He gave everything and was betrayed by everyone. Days passed and Sona broke ties with Rias. Tsubaki broke Kiba's heart in the best way. Sona told Serafal that she was no longer her sister, that for her sister died. That was a big blow to Leviathan. Her depression has been declining. Sona turned away from the supernatural. They respected her decision. Sona's family stopped supporting Leviathan. Saji is now the faction's lapdog. Momo and Ruruko were unfaithful to him, and Sona and her queen are almost more in their duties in the human world. End of flashback. No one could say anything. If that is true, how would they look at Issei in the eyes after so much time? Leviathan wanted to go at least and greet her. But she told him, Mao Leviathan, please, I would like us to keep our distance from each other. She couldn't stand it and left there crying. Better leave, said Sona, leaving there. She doesn't know why they keep calling her. But that thing about Issei does interest her. Where are you and what are you doing, Issei-kun? She sighed like a schoolgirl in love with her queen. And they went home. With Issei, he received a signal that indicated where Tony was, and he saw the news and heard about the Mandarin. There's Tony. You declared war on him and now you're in trouble. Aye, sighed Issei. Well, some exercise doesn't hurt. And Issei put on his black Kevlar suit and his shield. He placed it on his back and left his house and went to his garage and got on his motorcycle to go rescue Tony. I'll be there in like 8 hours. I'd better hurry. And Issei started at full speed with Tony. Tony would have made homemade weapons, but before that he told Jarley to go home and take care of the Mark 42. And what happened was funny. You're not going to leave me, or are you? We're connected, the boy said to Tony. You're blackmailing me. I'm cold. I lose, and you know how I know, because we're connected. And Tony started the car at full speed. Right now Tony is wondering how he came to look for the Mandarin and then was tied up and tortured by the guards. If you let me go I won't hurt you. And the guards laughed. Tony's watch rang as a sign that the Mark 42 would be there to rescue him, and the countdown began. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and nothing. What's happening? He kept counting, with Jarley. He went out, and saw how Tony's armor was trying to get out of the barn, with Issei. He's already halfway there. Wait, Tony, I'll save your ass soon, my friend. Issei accelerated his motorcycle to the maximum. With Tony, he would have already finished off the guards, and he would see Iron Patriot heading towards the flight where the president and other people would be. Rhodey, tell me that's you. Tony told him. I'm sorry, Tony, but they stole my suit and now they're thinking of kidnapping the president. Damn, that's when Rhodey arrived. I have an idea, and they went inside the mansion and took the fake Mandarin. And they also took his vote. With Issei, he was going to arrive, but he saw and Tony's signal disappeared, and he stopped halfway. What happened? Said Issei, taking another route. 1 hour later, with Tony and Rhodey. They would be seeing how the real problem was about to come. The Mandarin called Killian, to whom Tony made go on New Year's to a rooftop that Tony never reached. And now he threatened to kill the president. Tony contacted Jarvis and released the armor called Merry Christmas. But the problem is that the armor would arrive in 20 minutes. And the worst part is that the fire-breathing soldiers had just surrounded them. Any ideas, Tony? Yes. We need a Hulk. A what? Said Rhodey. When they were going to be annihilated, a strong kick hit the enemy. sending him flying out of the containers, thus plummeting into the water. Both turned around, and Rhodey said, "Captain Rogers." "Hello, Colonel," greeting him like an officer. And Tony said, "Hey, why did you take so long?" "Sorry, Tony, but halfway there I stopped by for some Christmas punch." "It's okay, but it has liquor, right?" "Who do you think I am?" said Issei. "Then it's a yes then," Tony said. "Of course, friend." "Hey guys, I'm interrupting, but we're being surrounded by the enemy, and they don't look very happy." "Alright," said Tony, and Issei said, "What's the situation?" "They're fire-breathing dragons." "Hey, be careful, their temperature can rise." "Alright." Issei got into a combat stance. Everyone surrounded him. The Mandarin spoke. "It's an honor to have you here, Captain America." "The pleasure is mine," said Issei. "Attack him, but don't kill him. He could be useful in my plans," he shouted in Mandarin. And everyone, they launched themselves against Issei. Luckily, Issei can take advantage of Hulk's super strength. In that, one approached, and Issei received him with a punch in the face that sent him very far from there. And Tony said, "We don't have a Hulk, but we do have a similar one." "Okay, Rhodey, let's go for Peeper." Rhodey gave Tony a weapon, and Issei said, "Here." And Issei threw his shield at him. "And how will you cover yourself?" Tony said, "Don't worry, I have this." He raised his arm and a weapon materialized. "Alright, save your girl," Issei said, and Issei walked away from there. The enemies began to separate. Some go for Tony and Rhodey. And the others? Well, against Issei. Divide and conquer, Issei thought. Very well, before we start, if anyone wants to fight, it's better that you attack me. Because if you don't want to, you can leave right now. And nobody paid attention, and they all went against him. Very well, in that case. He cracked his knuckles and said, "Let the fight begin." And Issei launched himself at some. Issei grabbed one by the feet and threw him far away. He crashed into a fuel container, which exploded, taking several in its path. Several surrounded Tony and Rhodey. "I wish I had armor," said Rhodey. And Tony, he told him to look up at the sky. "That's what I think it is, yes." Merry Christmas, Rhodey. And lots of suits of armor started arriving. Issei looked at how many Iron Man armors arrived at the fight site, and said, "I saw how you never waste time." He laughed a little. At the moment, he saw how a fire eater was going towards him. This one took him by the arm and threw him to the ground. Suddenly, one wanted to take him from behind while he was on fire. This one reacted quickly and raised his weapon and pierced his chest to the heart. Issei said, "Goodbye," and this one could not regenerate and fell in a dive downwards. Issei didn't like killing, but he can't afford to leave them alive and lock them up, because they could escape and kill again. So killing one so that many more lives are safe is something he will have to put up with. Maybe the real Captain America wouldn't do this. He would prefer to find a way to make them understand. But a criminal will still be a criminal. But I'm not the real one. I am someone who admires him and follows his ideal of justice, but by taking his name I swore that I would be someone superior to the real Captain Rogers. And Issei is now superior Captain America. With Tony, he put on an armor and went to look for Peeper. Rhodey wanted an armor, but the code is Tony's, so Rhodey was transported by an armor. He reached the president. "That armor looks good on you, President, but I need," even if he is putting on the Iron Patriot armor. "Hold on tight, President." "What?" And Rhodey left there with a president who was screaming. So Issei and Tony are alone. Well, it seems that the president is safe. In that, Issei says, "Tony, would you give me a hand?" And he saw that Issei had already been taken by more than 6 enemies. Tony said, "Heartbreaker, help the Cap." And the armor went towards Issei. It took care of everyone. "Thanks, Tony." "You, re-welcome Cap. Heartbreaker, help him." And in that, the armor joined Issei. "What's happening?" he said. Issei. "Merry Christmas," Tony said from inside the armor. And Issei didn't understand. And the armor told him that Iron Man, or Tony, had made him an armor a long time ago. But he could never give it to him. The armor explained it well, and told him what the armor could do, which adapts to his combat abilities. Issei liked that his friend had given him a gift. He said how to get out of the armor. He came out and said, "Well, link to my frequency, I will give you orders. You will take care of my back," Issei told him, and the armor nodded. Practically his new armor had the protocol, "Follow Al Cap," which follows his orders. And Issei asked, "Do you have a name?" "No, sir." And Issei said, "Do you think I named you Friday?" "Great, sir, that will be my name." In that, Tony threw the shield to Issei, which he took, and Tony said, "Thank you. I hope you liked my gift, and Issei said thanks Tony. I owe you one. You don't have to thank me, just enjoy it, and he went to face Killian, and Issei said okay. Friday we have work, watch my back, as you ordered sir, and Issei ran and Friday watched over him, with Tony. This guy was fighting with Killian. You don't deserve Peeper, and that's why I'll kill you. And I will be your comfort, he said shamelessly, and Tony said, it seems that being on that rooftop that night 20 years ago gave your brain too much oxygen, and Killian got angry and said, no, thanks to you, that night I understood. Thanks to you I knew what despair was. Loneliness and never ever trusting anyone. That night I understood that one is alone in this life. And that is why I want to kill you, Stark. And so both of them launched into a good fight. Tony changed armor, since Killian used fire and destroyed them. In the middle of the fight, where Tony had no more armor, and he looked at the sky just like the enemy, and he began to fly. And Tony said, look who is coming. The prodigal son returns. Just as his armor was about to reach him, it crashed and fell apart. Look, nothing more. That is just one of your biggest failures, Tony. Killian about to attack. Tony made a pose and quickly his armor joined Killian's and Tony said, Jarvis, do me a favor and destroy the Mark 42. As you ordered, sir. The enemy screamed and the armor exploded. The explosion was very big, and Tony jumped to avoid being devastated with the explosion. Tony crawled since with the fall he hurt himself. In that Killian appeared, but it didn't look very good. You won't be able to escape, Stark. It was always me, because I am the Mandarin. It didn't last long since he was hit very hard by Peeper. An armor read the heat readings on Peeper and prepared to attack her. Tony wanted to stop the attack, but his communicace didn't have it. Jarvis stopped, but he didn't hear him, and attacked Peeper. She dodged him and attacked the armor. Killian stood up, and Pepper kicked a missile and hit it with the repulsion ray, which resulted in an explosion, finishing off the Mandarin once and for all. With Issei, he and Friday managed to subdue all the enemies. Some decided to surrender and others were not so lucky. Some told him that the Mandarin threatened to kill their families. Issei came up with an idea. If he proposed to redeem yourself by doing good, would you accept? And they nodded yes. Well, then we have a deal. Issei contacted S.H.I.E.L.D., that a ship would come to pick him up and some aspirants. Issei told them that if they really wanted that he would help them, and some ex-enemies thanked him for the new opportunity. The ship arrived along with Nick, and he explained the situation, and he nodded and left there taking the new recruits with him. Issei went with Tony. Hey, I interrupted them, and Tony separated from Peeper. Not at all. Well, I told S.H.I.E.L.D. and they will take care of everything. For my part, I'm leaving, said Issei. It's always a pleasure to see you, friend, and thanks for the Christmas present. He extended his hand and Tony said, Come here, it's Christmas, and they both hugged. Issei said, You like motorcycles? And Tony nodded yes. Issei gave him some keys and said, Merry Christmas, and Tony said, There's the punch right. Of course. Well, let's go, Peeper, we have to prepare our own party. Tony took Peeper's hand and they left from there. Issei stayed there alone, and said, Well, Friday, take me home. And the armor joined Issei again. And they left from there. Post credits. People talking. It's good to get it off your chest, and not leave anything inside. It's just that a lot of people get sick from that. I had no idea you were a good listener. Telling all my most intimate experiences to one person is taking a weight off my shoulders. You know you've been helping me process. Sound of someone sleeping. ZZZ, I'm sorry that. You were sleeping. No. I just closed my eyes for a moment. Really? Where did you stay? In the elevator in Switzerland. You didn't hear anything, right? Sorry. But I'm not that kind of doctor. I'm not a therapist. What thing? Temper. That's when I started telling about when I was 14 and still had a nanny. That's strange. A somewhat strange meeting. A week had already passed since the attack on the president by the Mandarin. It was revealed who the real terrorist was. The vice president was arrested for conspiracy against the president. Rhodey was awarded a decoration for his heroic courage in saving the president, along with me and Tony. But since I don't like that kind of thing, I didn't attend. As for Tony, he and a medical team treated Peeper, and Tony decided it was time to get that off his chest. And he's on a project with another scientist, from what I heard. Tony hasn't left his lab for days. I wonder if he'll be okay. I hope his crazy experiments don't end humanity. I laughed a little, but something worried me. Reason. Tony Stark and his crazy projects. And as for me, I made some improvements to Friday. I didn't like the black color of the armor very much, so to speak, so I repainted the armor red with gold. I added boosters on the back. I don't know, but it reminded me of those days when I was once the security. Maybe it was nostalgia or who knows. There were only 2 days left until the meeting with them. I felt strange. It had been 6 years since I saw them, and it felt strange, having to see them again, and most likely they will ask me for explanations, and also the fact of remembering how they betrayed me makes me feel very angry. But I calmed down and thought, if we make an alliance with them, Nick will surely put several conditions on it. I laughed and thought about it carefully. I will let him know this so he can say it at the meeting. I looked in the mirror and hadn't noticed, and I said, when did my beard grow? I don't see myself as bad. I remember Sharon telling me that I looked good like this. Then I'll grow a beard. I left the bathroom and changed. I put on a gray shirt, boots, jeans, and a brown jacket. I took my motorcycle keys, and when I left Friday he said, "Are you going somewhere, sir?" And I said, "Friday, what have I told you about formalities? Just tell me, Steve, how do I order? And if I'm going for a walk, take care of the house while I'm gone, and feed Keel." If it was a German Shepherd puppy, flashback. 2 weeks ago I found him on the street. He had a hurt paw, and from the looks of it, he hasn't eaten in days. I looked for something to cover him from the rain and took him to the vet. They cured him. I wondered who would abandon him. If nobody wanted him, I would. So I gave him a name and a home. And every time I go out on the street, Keel waits for me at the door. It seems like he doesn't like to leave my side and always follows me. Finn flashback. When I went out there I saw him. He was sitting. He was wagging his tail as if he were happy. And I said, "You can't go out today," and he looked down, and I petted him, and I said, "I'll be back in a bit. Wait for me while I come back if," and I lifted his face, and he licked me. "Well, take care of the house Friday." And I left. I got on my motorcycle and left there. 2 days later, there is a list. I sighed and said, "Not quite, but it's something I have to deal with." I put an earpiece in my ear. "Friday, can you hear me?" "I can hear you perfectly, sir." "Good. Let's go." I put my shield on my back, and I said, "Friday at that meeting, watch my back. Demons can't be trusted." "All right." I got on the Quinjet, and we left for Japan. Specific place Qua. I was piloting the ship. Nick and 2 of his escorts were busy, and Friday was flying outside the ship. I asked him to give perimeter reports, and I lost in my thoughts. I sighed. What would Tony do in this type of situation? While I was in my thoughts, in another part of the world, specifically the underworld, the 4 mouths, a Michael who was seeing, a Gabriel deep in thought, a pensive Penemu, a Yasaka and her daughter looking at a photo of her beloved, an Azazel and an Odin in their own thing, and 2 clans that were allies were there. One of those clans looked ugly at the other, and the one they looked at badly. They had a sad face. They had not been seen to smile for years. After what they did, "Well, it is time," said each leader, and everyone went to the place where the meeting with the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. would be, and some wondered, "Issei, where are you? I miss you." They were the same thoughts of every woman in that room. With Issei, "Sir, we are about to land," and Issei came out of his trance and continued piloting the ship. And Issei looked out the window and saw his old hometown. "Wow, it hasn't changed much." Issei smiled at seeing his hometown once more. The Quinjet landed and Issei spoke. "Gentlemen, we are here now." Nick left first, followed by his 2 escorts. "Issei, are you coming with me?" "I'll be there in a moment. First, I have to make sure there are no possible attacks. Friday and I will inspect the place." As you'll see, in these types of meetings, someone always appears and ends up wanting to start a small war. Sponsored video. Sponsored by advertising partner. Watch to learn more. Read more. Okay, don't take too long. Okay, I'll see you in a moment. And Nick entered the place where his meeting would be. Issei followed by Friday stayed there. Issei disappeared, and he didn't see. But then a magic circle appeared a meter from where the ship was. And from there came the faction of the Asgardian fallen angel. Demons, yokais, all of them followed with their escorts. Azazel saw the ship and said, "Wow, look at that. I've seen, and these ships are the fastest." Only those in the government carry these ships. How I would like to see how this technology is made up. Hey, calm down, Azazel. We didn't come here for that. We came to find out about Issei-kun, and everyone put on a serious face. At that the Gremory clan said, It's true, we are going to find out about Issei, and we are going to bring him back. And I will marry him. That's when Sona said, Rias, stop being so pathetic and accept that he will never come back to you. He will never forgive you for breaking his heart. And that comment left all the women there speechless, with a depressed expression, and the mouse said, Stop fighting. Instead it would be better to go in and find out who those humans are who fought in Manhattan, and see if they don't try to destroy us. And everyone went into a facility a little far away, almost in the mountains. When everyone entered, Issei came out of the trees and said, How was your Friday? There are no signs of possible attacks. Good, then I will enter. You will stay outside. If something happens I will call you. As ordered, sir. Just in case I will change the frequency and put temperature panels. That way I will make sure nothing happens. Thanks, Friday. In that moment, a puppy came out of your ship that Issei rescued perfectly. So we brought a stowaway on board. Come here. Issei carried Keel and it started licking it. Friday, don't let it come in. As ordered, sir. With Nick, he was at the head of a large table. His guards were at the door waiting for the guests. At that moment the doors opened, and each leader from a different faction began to enter the place. Everyone saw Nick at the front of the place. They saw that he had an eye patch, and each one had a different thought. That is the leader of the most powerful organization among humans. It doesn't look like much, and Nick gets up from his seat and says, Welcome. It seems that he doesn't feel intimidated by them. No matter how imposing the leaders want to look, they didn't succeed. Each leader greeted Nick cordially. The women seemed to be looking for something. And, no matter how much they looked, they couldn't find what they were looking for. Nick spoke and said, You are looking for something, ladies. And there was no one missing who was the first to say, Where is Hayate Issei? Answer now, said a very arrogant redhead, and Nick said, Calm down. No matter how intimidating you are, you don't scare me, girl. Zerzek spoke and said, Rias, that's enough. This is not the time. We came for other reasons, said a serious Mao, and she calmed down, but not completely. To your question, girl, He didn't finish because from the darkness someone's footsteps were heard. Everyone fixed their gaze on the place where those footsteps came from. When the darkness dissipated they saw something they hadn't seen in years. Issei. All the women started to cry. Really, it's you, Issei. The Gremory group started to cry. And say, Issei-senpai, said a Nico and a vampire. Issei-kun, said a blonde. A Valkyrie. A blue-haired girl and an angel. Issei-sama, a phoenix. Issei-san, an Asia. Era my Kohai, a priestess with tears. My cute Issei, a crimson redhead. Of the other women, Yasaka, Seraphal, Penemu, Gabriel. They were crying like never before. And Kuna just said, This time you won't leave Issei-sama. And the Mao and his guardians only smiled. Finally, their friend companion would return home from where he should always have been, and his lapdog said, Jump, so many years for nothing. And the Citri had a smile and a slight blush. Sona and Tsubaki said, Wow, really is Issei. He has changed a lot. He is taller. And from the looks of it his suit highlights his great body. And what to say? He cut his hair and left a beard. And they unconsciously licked their lips. With the others, while everyone was still in their trance, Nick spoke up. Everything's fine outside. Yes, Friday is guarding the place from possible invaders. Thanks, Steve. When the women were going to knock Issei down to kiss him and beg for forgiveness, Issei said, he raised his hand and said, Please don't do that. I'm not the Issei you all remember anymore. That boy died 6 years ago. Issei raised his head and said, Thanks to you all I understood that you should never trust others. Much less love someone who only loved you for power and prestige. The girls only heard what he said. Their hearts began to ache. Issei and I, they said they're present while crying. We didn't want to lose. That day I was seriously injured saving them from the attack of Rias of Levon Lucifer. Drake showed me how they looked at me at that moment. I was very hurt, and they didn't even help me. After defeating the dragon of the apocalypse, where were they all those weeks when I was in a coma? Surely receiving prizes. Say Issei. But you know, I don't care about that anymore. Thanks to you, I realized that my humanity never left. On the contrary, I was more human than demon. I looked at them and said, I just came to say thank you. Thanks to all of you I discovered. If you said you were better than a human you are wrong. It is possible that they are wrong. But they do not do what you did to me. They will make mistakes, but even if it is, they look for how to correct them. And you just get rid of the problem and that's it. But we humans are not. We are better than you. We even had enough power to wipe out a race superior to humans. At that, Saji says, enough. They spent 6 long years looking for him. They, pointing at all the women, they cried for you until today. And you only come for this. Issei interrupted him. Saji Genshuru, the one who attacked me by betrayal 6 years ago, expelled from the Citri clan, abandoned by his women, and now he is the lapdog of the overlords. Who are you to tell me that? You are just garbage that depends on a sacred gear. And now he is a lapdog that seeks the attention of others. Issei finished saying, and he lowered his head. In his mind he was saying to himself, I'll kill you. I don't care about anything anymore. At that he accessed the balance breaker and launched himself to hit Issei with all his strength. Everyone saw what he was about to do. Nobody could arrive in time. Saji, stop. They all shouted. The moment Saji hit the blow, he never believed that Issei, a human, could stop the blow with ease. Nanny, they all said. They are surprised by what a human can do, said Issei. Issei did what Juggernaut did to Colossal in Deadpool 2. Issei grabbed his wrist and bent it. Saji screamed, but Issei started hitting him in the face. Saji fell to the ground. Issei stepped on his face to the point that his helmet armor cracked and broke. Saji was seen stained with blood all over his face. I would swear that Saji lost some teeth. Issei stopped hitting him. He got up with difficulty and said, I'm not finished with you yet. Damn, it didn't end because Issei hit him in the face. Hulk vs. Ultron type. Saji left there at full speed, and everyone there said, what strength. He really is human. What happened to him? Issei sighed. Wow, I've never felt so angry before. I'm sorry, but I had to do it. Better take care of him. I think I went too far with him. Then a guard went to help Saji, and everyone said, what happened to you these years? And Azazel stared at his weapon and said, is that vibranium? And Issei raised his hand and said, or this, if it's vibranium. Until Nick decided to speak and say, well, I think it's time to know why I was asked to come, right? And there a meeting took place. Asaji was left toothless. Some Gremory was still crying, along with others. Akuna looking at her hero with stars in her eyes, and 2 Citri ogling and Issei with their eyes. How did we get to this point? A few hours had passed since the meeting with them. During that time, they demanded an explanation as to why I, a human, had just beaten up a high-class demon so easily. Nick only told them that I was subjected to an old project called Super Soldier Serum. Then Azazel asked to know how they got the vibranium, and Nick said, that's classified. And a detailed report followed of what happened in New York. An Azazel who wanted to steal Issei's Mark 41, but he only received a very strong electric shock from Friday. And Azazel looked like a roasted chicken. The faction couldn't believe how far humanity has come. They found out about Loki. A thoughtful Odin had heard Thor talk about a team he formed on Earth. No, I don't think so. Thor is very proud. I don't think so, or maybe he is. Then they asked me if I would return with them and resume plans to marry Rias in exchange for returning to Drake. Obviously I refused. And I said, a while ago you told me that my marriage to Miss Gremory was annulled. Aside from that, you forbade me from approaching your home and returning to Drake in exchange for that. It's very pathetic of you. Rias, followed by the others, left the room crying. Besides, I have nothing to do with you. Remember that you exiled me from your worlds. And so the meeting continues. After a while it ends. Everyone leaves sadly. We were already leaving, but Nick told me I could stay a few days. You can fix things with your family. Maybe they're very sad about you leaving. You've already dealt with those women. Now go and visit your family. That's an order, soldier. And one more thing. Nick said to Issei a little seriously. Don't trust anyone when you get back to base. Hey, Issei said, I'll contact you. Issei was thoughtful. Nick knew that they would soon overthrow him in S.H.I.E.L.D. So while that happened, he didn't want Issei to get involved. In another part of the world, Hail Hydra, said a bald guy followed by a liar who appeared in Iron Man 2. Cough cough. And Nick left there, and I stayed there, so I ordered Friday to go home. I would stay a few days. Take Keel home. I'll see you in a few days. As you ordered, sir, and don't forget to feed him. And I stayed there. I moved the Quinjet away from Qua. I sighed and put my hands in my pockets, and I noticed a paper there. I opened it, and I was surprised. Flashback. An hour ago. Everyone left. Yasaka left. She said goodbye to me, but I just ignored her and left very sad. Kunu and I were left alone for a moment to talk. Kunu came and hugged me. I missed you so much. I ruffled her hair and said, Go mean Kunu-chan. But something's happened for a reason. I'm sorry if I made you feel bad, but I promise that when I'm free I'll come to Kyoto to see you. Do you think so? Really? Yes. Then I'll prepare you a delicious meal that same day. I'm looking forward to it. I noticed something strange and said, Hey, you haven't grown a little. I hadn't noticed, but she was taller. And what can I say, her body developed very well. How time has passed. I laughed a little, but that made me feel old. And she said, Issei-sama is absent-minded. I'm sorry. There's no problem if you kiss me. It doesn't have to be on the lips. Issei no eki. It's okay. And I was going to give her a kiss on the cheek. But she is very smart and moved, and ended up giving me a kiss on the lips when she separated from me. She said, It was worth waiting for you 6 years and giving you my first kiss, and that's not what I'll give you, said a very red Kunu. She approached my ear and said, Apart from food there is something else. I'm not a girl anymore, as you can see. I've grown up and I'm a woman, so come visit me soon. And she gave me a kiss on the cheek, and left from there. And I said, It's true, Kunu is not a girl anymore. Kunu has a body like Ravel. When I was going to leave, Sona got in my way and said, It's a pleasure to see you again, Issei. I greeted her and said, It's a pleasure too, Sona-san. At that she came closer. She put a note in my pocket, without me realizing it, and whispered in my ear, I didn't realize until now, but seeing you better. You're very hexy. Hey, and she left from there. See you, Issei-kun. Wow, I didn't think Sona was so daring. End of flashback. And the note said, Issei-kun, see you at the Park Plaza tonight. Sincerely, Sona Citri. Well, if you want to see me, it might be to tell me something, Issei thought. So he got out of there. He got to the Quinjet. He left his shield. He approached the cockpit. Luckily I brought my motorcycle with me, otherwise I would have to walk to the city. He got on his motorcycle and left there. Meanwhile in Aqua residence. Wait, Rias-sama. I don't care. Nothing matters to me anymore. The love of my life hates me now. I was stupid. How did selfishness win in battle? I pushed him away from me. If I hadn't been so stupid, him and I, sniff, sniff, he and I would be married. And we would be a happy couple, if it weren't for sniff. And he locked himself in and started to cry. What does it matter if I live or die? And so Rias locked himself in the old room where he used to sleep next to the love of his life. The other girls preferred to do the same. Now I have nothing left. Without Issei it doesn't matter if I live or die. These were the thoughts of the brown-haired man's ex-wives. With Issei, he was driving all over Qua. Wow, this place hasn't changed. I wonder if they still travel around the world. Issei thought that after what he experienced, maybe the Gremory wouldn't live in their house anymore. So Issei went in the direction of his old house. During his journey he was able to observe how some things had changed. This is nostalgic. I wonder what else has changed over the years. I didn't notice, but it was already there. There where he once called home. For a moment Issei felt nervous, and he proceeded to knock on the door. He didn't know if his parents were there. While he was knocking on the door, inside the house Issei's mother was coming down. How strange. The girls locked themselves in. Something must have happened. Just then I heard a knock on the door. Her husband had gone to sea, as had his wife. When they finally opened it, they said, I'm offering you something young. Issei was in front of them, and yet they hadn't recognized him. Good afternoon, Issei said. I see you don't recognize me, he thought. And Issei asked, Excuse me, is this Issei by any chance? And they said, Who? And a lump formed in Issei's throat. I see, so they erased their memories. I imagine they did the same to all those who knew me here in Qua. I think I came to the wrong house. Sorry for the inconvenience. And they said, Don't worry, young man. Issei turned around and left. When Issei left there, from the window Rias looked out, and her surprise was to see Issei moving away from there. He left at full speed. She called the others and they all ran to catch up with him. Issei sighed. Well, from what I see, nothing ties me here in Qua anymore. I think it was a mistake to stay. It would be better if I left tonight. I'll just see Sona Citri and then I'll go. Issei got on his motorcycle and left. When the girls came out they saw how Issei had moved away. Something's wrong, girls, Issei's mother asked. And they said who that young man was. That boy came looking for a guy named Issei, but we told him we didn't know him. In fact, I hadn't heard that name for years when I wanted to get pregnant but couldn't. I imagine if I had had a son, I would have liked his name to be like that." The girls felt sad when they heard that. He probably came to see them, and since they didn't recognize him, he left. "What have we done, Sama? He's suffered enough," they all said there. "Come on," Rias said, "let's go find him." "Here's where you're going, girls." "Wait, they're not going to come. Gomen no Kasama. But we have to look for someone. We'll come back at night." "Okay, be careful." And the Gremory left there and went to look for Issei. Time skip. Issei had gone to where he was summoned. Issei was thoughtful. "How did I get to this point? I'm glad to have seen them. But it hurts me that they don't remember me anymore." While thinking so much, he didn't realize that Sona's relative went to Issei and gave him a paper that said, "Enter the hotel, there are people following us, it would be better not to risk it." Issei entered the room. He was sitting down. "Boy, he has taken a long time." He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he got a big surprise. Sona had named him. He saw Sona with her queen in front of him, dressed in a trench coat. It seems that they wanted to go unnoticed. He laughed a little since they looked funny. When Issei said, "Well, what is happening? What did they want?" he did not finish speaking since his surprise was pleasant when he saw the following. They both took off their trench coats and saw the following. "What's going on? Why are you dressed like that?" Issei hadn't finished speaking until both of them lunged at him. "Isn't it obvious?" they both said. Unable to believe it, Issei accidentally had both of his hands on each of Sona's and his queen's breasts. Both were red. Issei noticed and accidentally squeezed their breasts. And they both moaned. "Sorry," said Issei, removing his hands from them. And they said, "Why are you stopping?" "Hey," and both said, "Just let yourself go." And Sona approached Issei's lips. Issei was going to speak, but Sona put her fingers on his lips and said, "Shoo, just let me enjoy this moment." And Sona kissed Issei with lust. He couldn't believe it, and in his mind it was just happening. What the hell is going on? But he said, like they said, "I'll let myself go." Next to Sona was Tsubaki, who watched this with a little pleasure. "I want to kiss him too." Sona separated from him, and from one moment to the next Tsubaki said, "My turn." And quickly she kissed Issei. He was just thinking, I would like to see the face of that idiot Kiba. From what I know, he still loves Tsubaki, and he does his best every day to get her back. What would he say if he saw the woman he loves in the arms of the one who was once his best friend? Haha, Issei laughed a little maliciously. What does it matter? Issei took Tsubaki and held her closer to him. The kiss intensified in a very erotic way. After a few minutes they both separated. They looked sideways at Issei, and he said, "Who would have thought it? Sona and her queen are closet perverts." And they were only embarrassed because they had never worn the type of clothes they are now wearing. "You're wrong. We used this only for you. Because we love you." Sona began to tell her some memories. Flashback. Years ago, Issei had just completed his second year in high school. He was a boy without any perversions, until two guys arrived and took him to the dark side, and from there he became known as the perverted beast. Sona found Issei interesting to a certain point that she felt attracted to him, so she wanted to have him close. But she didn't want to be discovered. So with what Issei did spying on the women, Sona took advantage of that to punish him and make him stay after school to help her. And that's how it happened. Issei helped Sona. She was cold towards him, but she enjoyed having him around. One day Issei fell asleep in the council room. Sona saw how the sun's rays illuminated his face, and she found that scene tender. And without wanting to, she approached him and instinctively kissed him on the lips. Issei woke up after a few minutes. "What happened?" He yawned. "I fell asleep." He looked and saw Sona with her back to him. "Something happened, Kaicho." But Sona was very red. "I gave Issei-kun my first kiss. What do I do? I can't look him in the eyes. What do I do?" He came out of his thoughts and hid his blush. "Hey, no, it's nothing. You can go home. I think these weeks made you understand that every action has its consequences. So you are free from your punishment now." Issei got up and thanked her. The days had passed and Sona couldn't forget that feeling on her lips. So she decided to confess to Issei, but she didn't tell that some events happened and she found out that Issei now belonged to Rias Gremory, friend and eternal rival. Without a doubt Sona knew how much Rias was in love, and she noticed how much Issei loved her. So she didn't do anything. Until today. Then flashback. Issei was surprised by every word Sona said. He somehow felt guilty for not realizing it sooner. Issei hugged her and said, "I'm sorry for not realizing at that time. But let's think about the present. Let's think about tonight. Issei said mischievously, and he gave her a passionate kiss. After that they separated and he asked Tsubaki, and she only answered that she felt admiration since the fight with Loki, and tried to get closer to him, so she accepted Kiba out of pity just to be with him. But after what they did to him, she threw him away. She even made him think that she had a lover. Issei smiled and began to touch her butt. While she continued talking, but she began to moan thanks to Issei's caresses. Then he kissed her, and she thought, I wish I could see Kiba's face knowing this. I know I look like garbage doing this, but they started it. You could say that I am giving them a lesson. So she continued with her thing. After separating, Sona told him to take off his shirt and show her those muscles. Since the meeting, they both haven't stopped fantasizing about him. Issei took off his weapons that he was carrying in his arms and then began to lower the zipper of his combat suit, and thus showing his muscular body. So both Citrus knocked him down and fell on the bed. Sona caressed Issei's body, while her queen kissed him very passionately, while on the other side of the room was a blonde. Because, he said while crying and watching the show from the other side. One fine day, both Citrus were screaming for Issei to take off his clothes so he could show off his well-defined body. According to them, Issei would be the only one who could touch them. Issei carried both Citrus and settled them on the bed. They just stood there watching what Issei would do. This one lowered his neck closure. At the moment he took off his Kevlar shirt and thus showed his body. Both Citrus delighted in this muscular body, and how Issei gave them a show that made them see him with not very holy eyes. At the moment both of them pounced on this one. He took them in his open arms and hugged them. Thank you for waiting all this time. And they said that they truly love him, and we would never do what they did to you. I know you suffered this time, but we want to be there for you. I know that you defended everyone even when you received nothing in return. But now let us take care of you and protect you. And Issei was being kissed by Sona and shortly after by Tsubaki too. Issei was grateful to know that someone truly loved him and not for what he had. Issei said enough of sentimentality, and he put the girls to bed again. Lemon skipped. Kiba couldn't believe it. If Rias hadn't sent him to look for Issei, he wouldn't be feeling this terrible betrayal. His beloved in the arms of his ex-best friend whom he swore to protect. But he couldn't fulfill it because he couldn't protect him from himself. While she was crying her eyes were devoid of light. All he could do was listen to his beloved moan, and how his ex-friend made love to her, or in his case, overpowered her. With Issei, Lemon skipped. After a while, Tsubaki woke up, thinking that what she experienced had been a dream. But no, it seems that the great Satan watches over the demons, and she was only happy, and said, "Can I join?" And after a while they were both on all fours waiting to be penetrated again by this young man who is a stud. And so the night continued, until dawn. After a while, the three of them fell asleep, both Citrus using Issei's arms as pillows and with a huge smile that showed satisfaction, and in Issei with a victorious smile. The sun's rays fell into the room. Issei opened his eyes, but he couldn't move because he saw and there he had three beauties sleeping like babies. After a while, both women woke up and the first thing they saw was Issei. They smiled and kissed him, but it seems that those morning kisses became very passionate. Issei calmed down, so he invited the three of them to go take a bath. But it seems that the bath is always the sexual fantasy of any boy, so they couldn't resist and did it again in the bathroom. After a while, and that they dressed in a normal way and not in a perverted way, they left the room. But as they passed by they saw that on the other side of their room they could hear someone crying. They didn't give it importance and left from there. But for some reason Issei knew what was happening in that room, and he just laughed a little. "Is something wrong with you, Issei?" asked Sona. "Hey. No, it's nothing. Come on, I'll invite you to breakfast," since she had heard the rumbling of their stomachs. And so they went on the road. Both women took his arm with a happy smile. On the way people just stared at Issei. To some he seemed familiar, but from where? Until something clicked and it was seeing a boy who was wearing a t-shirt with the Captain America logo. When they finally realized who it was, he was no longer there, and people ran saying, "Captain America is here," and only the news spread that one of the Avengers was there in their city. But why? Issei was in a cafeteria and next to him were both Citrus having breakfast, until a civilian was running while shouting, "Captain America is here." Issei sighed. He wanted no one to recognize him, until Sona asked him about it, and so Issei told them about the Avengers. what happened in Manhattan, and his adventures that he has had all this time. And what left them surprised is that Issei explained to them about the super soldier serum project to which he submitted. That explains everything. Since that beating you gave Saji did surprise us. And so his breakfast continued, until Rogers versus Vala. When they were eating, Issei saw Vala pass by. He stopped and saw Issei, and quickly entered the place. Issei never got along with Vala, since he was always boastful, and always said that he would be the next dragon god, something that Issei didn't care about. But he thought that something bad would happen, so through his communicator he called Friday. Friday, I feel that something bad is about to happen, come support me, I don't think I can do it alone. As you ordered, sir. Just wait 5 minutes. I'll go at full speed, so wait. And Issei threw a magnetism that Tony put on the shield. He activated it, Thorm Journal style. Vala entered with a somewhat arrogant face and greeted him. Or look who we have here, the former Wales carrier, smiling. And Issei said, Vala, it's been a while. What do you want from me? No, nothing, I just came to say hello. This one stared at Sona. I hadn't noticed, but the Citri heiress is beautiful. You don't believe it, Issei. And this one frowned in anger. What do you want, Vala? I don't have time to deal with you and your jokes. Come on, Issei, I haven't seen you in years. I just came to see you. I knew you survived. Wouldn't you like a fight? Eh? It's true you don't have the dragon anymore, or maybe, in Vala's mind, Albion tells him, Vala, that's enough. Hey, come on, Albion is our chance, didn't you want to defeat him? Yes, but he's not the red one anymore. It would be better to leave. No, wait, I'll have fun with him first. He still owes me for that beating he gave me. Maybe I'll make him suffer by taking those two beauties with me. Ha ha, Vala laughed. Vala, you're not like that, that's enough. Shut up, Albion, just dedicate yourself to giving me power. You've changed. You wanted to finish off Rizvim, and now you look like him. Shut up, Vala said angrily. He came out of his trance and said to him, how about a fight like the old days? Issei said that no, we are no longer rivals, and I think there would be a disadvantage. He didn't say it for himself but for Vala, to which Issei paid the bill and left there, leaving Vala a little angry for ignoring him. If you don't want to fight, I'll force you. Issei was walking holding both Citra's hands. When they got far enough away, Vala challenged him, or else he would do something to Sona and her queen. Issei got angry since it reminded him of when he tried to kill his former teammates. You never changed, Vala. You're still the same. You put other people's lives at the expense of your own. That's when Vala grabs Sona and pulls her towards him, and says, I wonder what she'll say while I make her mine. This time Issei did get upset. Vala was laughing. Issei got angry and saw an opening, and with all his strength he hit him and ended up sending Vala flying into the mountains. Issei took Sona and said, are you okay? Hi, thanks to you. Issei contacted Friday. Where are you, friend? Sir, I'll be a minute. Okay, hurry up. At your command. Issei used the mechanism and tried to bring his shield. At that moment a great shout was heard from the mountains. At that moment the mountains exploded, and Issei heard Vala calling him with great anger, and Issei said, Friday, whenever you want. At that moment we felt the place shake. Issei saw how Vala came out at full speed and went against him. The Citri wanted to protect him, but Issei told them, no, this is dangerous. But Issei, you are no longer a supernatural being. You no longer have powers. It doesn't matter. I'll protect you at any cost. Just stay back. It's time for me to get serious, and Issei cracked his knuckles. At that moment Vala arrived at full speed to hit him. But what he didn't see coming was that Issei also hit, and they both collided. What's up? If you are just a human, and I am a powerful being, Issei interrupted him. Stop saying you're the strongest. I remind you that your mother was human. So stop with the nonsense. You're nothing without Albion. This did bother Vala, and he gathered energy in his free hand and threw it at Issei. Something came and got in the way of the attack, which never came. Since Friday had arrived, he had the shield that prevented Vala's attack. Nanny, said Vala. At that moment, Friday fired a repulsor ray at him, and made him move away from there a few meters. You took a long time, said Issei. I'm sorry, sir, but I saw a cat and I strayed from the path. Issei stood still and said, did you tell a joke? When Issei was laughing, since I always joked with him, and Friday never understood. At that Vala emerged from the rubble shouting this man's name. Vala began to raise his aura too high, which alerted everyone there. In the underworld, Sky and Gregory felt Vala's power rising to the heavens. What is this feeling? We must go quickly. And everyone left. Sona looked at the situation with concern. We must do something or else he will hurt Issei. Both Citrus said worriedly. Friday said, Sir, I'm detecting unstable energy levels. We must immobilize it or something will explode. I understand. Evaluate possible weak points. At your service. I looked closely and said, if we hit the center of his armor, it is possible that it will become destabilized, and we can attack until we immobilize him. The other would also be to damage his wings. With that we would have an advantage on the ground, since it seems that he moves better in the air. Okay, said Issei. Give me the shield and Friday I'll throw it. Okay, Friday, let's play. Activate the anti-dragon protocol. At your service. And the armor began to change. The two Citrus swore they saw Issei's old armor. What is that, Issei? They said these, and Issei said, I modified the armor so that it could fight a dragon. It doesn't have the strength I used to have, but it can hold its own for a few moments. Vala instantly launched himself against Issei. Friday, at your service, sir. The armor joined Issei's, and both of them rose to the sky. Wow, Haidu, you surprise me. Even without having anything, you have tricks up your sleeve. But that won't work on me. We'll see about that, okay. I showed you that you don't have to be a demon or a dragon to beat you up, Vala said. What did those Gremory see in you? I wonder why they always rejected me every time I made advances or did my best to seduce them and make them fall for my dragon charm even if you were no longer there. And Issei was left thinking, haha, but the good thing will be that when I kill you, I will be there to give you comfort and make you mine. And also those sisters, said Vala while laughing. I am. Issei was unconscious and lying in what he once called a bed or maybe home. His ex-girlfriends had already arrived to clean and heal Issei's wounds when they entered the room. The first thing they saw was Rias lying next to Issei, and she was crying as she said, how could I forget that warmth, as she clung so tightly to the unconscious Issei's body. The others saw this and also began to approach him, and saw how wounded he was and how they laughed so hard that no one could take her away from him. They began to approach Issei until they were hugged to his body. It's been a while since I felt the warmth of Issei-san. Sama. Senpai, the whole DxD group said, and Rias wiped her tears and said, they brought that. Hi Rias-sama. Okay. At that she came closer and started looking for the zipper or buttons to take off the shirt he was wearing. Upon finding her, she began to lower the zipper of her shirt. Well, upon seeing Issei's body, everyone's face turned red. Unintentionally, Rias began to touch Issei's exposed chest. When Issei's tactical cover shirt was completely removed, everyone wiped their blushes away and looked in horror at how Issei's body was covered in scars. Not just any scars, but bullet wounds or cuts that looked like knives, among others. Everyone brought their hands to their mouths, in a sign of concern. But what happened to him? All the girls questioned. No, my dear Issei, you've been through so much. And they kept checking. When they decided to turn their body to see his back, they started to cry, since they saw worse than the ones in front of his body. Seeing that, they all hugged him. They all cried to see Issei like that. And they began to remember how a few hours ago they were one step away from dying. If it weren't for Issei who took the risk and put up his shield to protect them from that treacherous attack made by the coward Vala. And it hurt them to see how I looked at them all, and Issei dedicated a few words to them. Even after everything, I still managed to save his ass. And they saw him almost collapse to the ground, while spilling a lot of blood from his body. Then Rias said, Asia, heal Issei. Anagai, hi Rias-sama. And she put her hands to heal him. The moment the light enveloped him, something happened, and she withdrew her hands and they saw what was happening. Suddenly Issei's wounds began to close. The bruises all over his body began to disappear, and they were all very surprised to see that. What happened? What did you do, Asia? Hey, no, I didn't do anything. Out of nowhere he started to heal. They didn't understand until they remembered what the artificial intelligence that takes care of Issei had told them. He told them that he would start healing quickly, and they also saw how the bruises on his face were fading away. Then they all proceeded to clean the blood that covered his body. Rias took the clothes that covered Issei and began to smell them. This smell is warm. They all saw how it was starting to get dark. They were all going to go to their room. But everything changed when Rias got into bed with Issei. Hey, you're laughing, Sama. It's not obvious. I took advantage before they came to interrupt us. I took Issei's shirt and put it on. I got into the covers and covered Issei. And she hugged him. The others, seeing such actions from their mistress, they didn't hesitate, and went to bed anyway, and that same night they all remembered what it felt like to have the warmth of someone you truly love. And while they clung to him, they began to cry, and after that they fell asleep. That same day, when Azazel took Vala, he discovered that his dragon power was no longer there. So Albion got tired of Vala and left him. This is a problem. I need to inform the other factions about this. This is going to be problematic. Without one of the pillars, this is going to go to hell. Vala was on a stretcher. His condition was apparently in a coma. No one knew when he would wake up, but no one wanted to see him and tell him that his dragon had abandoned him. This would undoubtedly break him. In a certain place after a few days after the fight between Issei and Vala, we have problems. I'm sorry, sir. I'll see you in 3 hours. Make that 2. I'll contact you. End of communication. When suddenly several police officers and SWAT groups began to attack him from behind. What are you waiting for? Start the engine and restart it. Right there, sir. Several broken bones. I recommend an anesthetic. When the car responded and sped away from its pursuers, it defended itself. When it had finally avoided them, ahead of it something happened. When he had been attacked. In a certain part of Japan someone had suddenly woken up. He barely got up. Friday, how long have I been asleep? About 2 weeks. Seriously. And where are we? We are in the house of the Hayata family. And his vision regained its brightness, and he looked closely at the room, and he said, report of these 2 weeks. And he showed him everything he saw of the Gremory and Citri fighting over sleeping with Issei. And he showed him how they were crying all the time for Issei. This left him speechless. Well, I must thank you for taking care of and healing my wounds. He took off his clothes and saw his suit on a sofa in front of him, and he started to get dressed. Downstairs, all the girls were talking. Well, it's time to see Issei. Although Sona and her queen have not left Issei's side at all times, they do not give the Gremory an advantage to get close to him, but they always manage to get into his bed. Sona adjusted her glasses and said, come on, Tsubaki. We can't leave them alone with Issei, or else they will do that to him again. If we hadn't made it by a hair, I don't know what would have happened. And they all began to go up the stairs to see Issei. With Issei, he's active, a button on his wrist. Friday contacts Nick. I'm sorry, sir, but his frequency disappeared a few minutes ago. What? Why didn't you tell me? I was relocating his signal to see if it had suffered a failure. I see. In any case, it would be better to go there. There are things I must resolve. When he finished putting on his suit, he heard the doorknob open. Listen to the song while you read the following. When the door opened, everyone saw Issei, and they shouted, Issei, are you okay? Do you need something? He turned his head and looked at them, and said, without turning around, yes, it seems I'm better. Issei comments, but it seems something is happening in another part of the world that requires my presence. At that, Rias and the others told Issei, please stay a few days. We don't know if you're okay yet. No, in fact, my regeneration is very good, and I feel better now, but I don't understand why I slept for so long. And he remembered when Vala hit him in the head. He might have received brain trauma. At that point the others started talking. You should never have left here. We shouldn't have done that to you. They didn't finish when Issei stopped them and said, I'm sorry, but this is not the place or the time to talk about that. As long as he takes up his shield, and he turned his face to see them all, and he said, thanks for helping me, but I have to go now. See you later. And he walked to the window and jumped. Issei, they all shouted. As they approached the window to see Issei, they saw how Issei was on the Quinjet. See you? Said Issei, turning to go to the ship's cabin, not without first taking a good look at Sona and Tsubaki, both of whom winked at him, and he smiled, and the ship left, leaving the Gremory sad, because Issei had left again, and they didn't know where he was. But Asia spoke. The good thing was that Issei-san, he didn't behave badly like last time. That cheered everyone up since they saw that it was true. Besides, he told us, see you later. That definitely made everyone happy. On Sona's part, a few minutes ago she received a text message from Issei, in which he explained to her and Tsuchan how he referred to her, that she had to leave as soon as possible, but he gave them his address so they could visit him. Something that made them happy was that the text message said, besides, we have to finish what we left pending that night. And they only rejoiced and blushed. And Friday, along with Issei, they competed to see who would arrive first. Meanwhile, in certain places, in a certain room there was a blonde guy who was all messed up after that night. He hasn't left. In the underworld, another blonde with false teeth. Speaking ill of whoever did that to him. Elsewhere, a silver-haired man in a coma. Special Defenders. After a while, some members took vacations. Tony does new research on Mark armor. And me, well, they're from Brooklyn, and I have a lot of time. It's so quiet. And that makes me so bored. I'm reading the newspaper. I haven't done that for a while. While I was reading, I saw several cities that were in chaos. For example, Hell Kitchen, Harlem, and New York. Wow, gangs take it seriously. Friday, what information do you have on these cities? Too much drug trafficking, money laundering, political corruption, and much more. This situation is so bad. But there are some heroes who do their best to help their city move forward. Seriously, who are they? Luke Cage, Daredevil, Iron Fist, White Jessica Jones. Wow, I've heard of those people. What are you thinking, sir? I haven't had any action for months and this would throw me off my daily routine. We're going to New York. I have a feeling there's going to be some action. Alright. And Steve and Friday are leaving Brooklyn. Elsewhere. Luke, these guys are really tough. Luz, let's wait here. And the four mentioned above enter a restaurant to take shelter. A little while later, the group of the Hand attacked the four Screams. Elektra stabbed Matthew and knocked out Jessica Jones. Now only Luke and Iron Fist remained. What do we do? They both said, covering their friends' backs. No, Luz. I'm sorry, Luke. If I hadn't come, this wouldn't have happened. Take them. I'll buy you time. I won't leave without you. Himself. In that both are surrounded by 20 ninjas. There is no escape, Mr. Fist. Damn, they both said. In that, someone entered the destroyed restaurant. Sorry, it's still open. And he saw several ninjas surrounding 4 people, 2 of them unconscious. Sorry, I went to the wrong place, the old woman said. Don't leave any loose ends. Kill him. Runaway boy, said Cage and Fist, trying to support him. That will be unnecessary for me. 2 ninjas surrounded him, and before attacking him, one of the ninjas was hit and taken away from the rest. What was that? The old woman said. The subject emerged from the shadows with a shield in his hand. It's Captain America, the old woman said fearfully. Wow, Cage said, and Fist. They're waiting for the attack, the old woman ordered as she retreated. Then, Steve punched 5 ninjas in a row, sending them away from the restaurant with his monstrous strength. Luke just said, he's got style. Seeing how he single-handedly took out all the ninjas. A little while later, hi, I'm Steve Rogers. Sorry to intrude, but I saw you were having problems. Luke and Fist were amazed. Before their eyes they had an Avenger, one of the most powerful on the planet. They both shook hands saying, I'm your fan. Even Luke was happy. Steve just laughed and said, I request permission to help you on your mission, putting himself in a soldier pose. They both said, an Avenger wants to be with us. Give it, we accept. The 3 laughs. So come with me. And this charge to Jessica and Matt. Where are we going? Luke and Fist said, we're just going for my ride. I left it a bit far from here. It would attract a lot of attention. What kind of car is it? And both say it's serious. Seeing a ship. Attitude. Steve leaves Jessica and Matt aside inside the Quinjet. We can go now on Friday. All right, sir. Luke and Fist are still in shock. Where are we going? They both said, let's go to the base. Special Defenders Point 2. What is this place? Luke and Fist said, it's an old secret shield base. It was transferred to me a while ago. You could say it's a secret base of mine. And they saw vehicles, weapons, etc., and an intelligence center that monitored all of New York. I have a question. Which is it? You can really beat the Hulk, Issei Steve Rio. No, I can't beat him. But I can stand up to him and put him in serious trouble if I want to. Wow, one more question. Because you want to help. No lose. I was really bored at Avenger Tower. I decided to return to Brooklyn, but still, no action. So I searched and found them. And I can see that their fight is serious. Thanks for everything. Don't worry. And what will we do now? Before saying anything, Jessica woke up and hit the first thing she saw. PMMM. There was a big bang. This is how you treat someone who helped you. She looks at Luke and Fist with her hand on her face. What did I do? That's when he realizes who had hit him. Like Captain America. That's how it is. Could you take your fist out of my face? I'm sorry. This sigh. Don't worry. How is it that I don't finish? Because on Friday he left the ship. The 3 of them stared at each other, very fascinated. Iron Man. No, it's my armor. Something Tony gave me for Christmas. Incredible. And they started to look closely, until she spoke. Steve smiled since he hadn't been in a group for a while. Sir, I speak Friday. Something happened. That group is looking for them all over New York. We'll be safe at this base. No one will be able to get in. Genial. So explain the situation to me. A while later, I understand. It will be great to see that organization destroyed. So what are we waiting for? Take whatever weapons and armor you like. Luke saw some kind of bracelets. They caught his attention, and he put them on. Iron Fist looked for a new shirt since his was stained with enemy blood. Jessica was the explosive type, so she grabbed some grenades. At that moment she turned around and saw Captain America half naked. She saw his muscles and was amazed. Tranquila Jessica susurró Luke. She was sorry. At that Iron Fist asks him, "How did you get those skills and strength?" Everyone watched. At that point, Matt wakes up and says, "They said they would go for our loved ones. We must go for them." "Who is he?" said Matt. Change of plans. They have someone important in their lives. Luke, Jessica, Fist and Matt attended. "Okay, we'll go get them and bring them here." "Let's go then." "Where we are." Luke comes closer and says, "That's Captain America." "Wow, what is an Avenger doing here?" He said he was bored. "It must be hard being an Avenger." "You have no idea," said Steve. "Fighting aliens and going to other worlds. That's hard." "Seriously, they went to another world?" "Yes," he said, taking his shield and boarding the ship. "Let's go." And these went up. "Is all this serious?" Daredevil said. "Yes, it's weird for us to be with an Avenger. You should have seen how he took out 20 ninjas with ease." "He's a good fighter," Cage said. A little while later, the four of them got off the ship. "Steve, I'll see you a block from here. I'll contact you on Friday. If you see anything suspicious, I'll go right away. Now go get your friends." "Hi," and these left. A little while later, "Calm down, Matt," said a journalist and a lawyer. "Come on, Matt, what's going on? The hand will go for you and I will not be able to protect you. So, someone has offered us help." "Who?" "You'll see. Over here, Matt. There it is." And they saw a ship. "What's that?" "Hi, I'm Steve Rogers." "Oh my God! Matt is and Captain America is a pleasure," Foggy said, shaking his hand. "Hello, what's your name?" "Tell me, Foggy." Okay. Attitude. And these go up. "Captain, can I ask you a few questions?" "Sure, I'll answer whatever you like." Karen. "Oh, and what do you think of the Avengers?" Together we are invincible." "What are you doing here if you are from Brooklyn?" "Good answer, Karen. The Avengers have taken vacations and I never take one. I am a soldier and my duty is to humans." "One last question. You are single?" "Ha, let's just say it's complicated." "Okay, thanks for replying." "You're welcome, Karen." A little while later, Luke's friends, Jessica, Matt, and Danny took their friends to the police station. They returned to the ship. "Are you ready? And let's finish off those idiots." These arrived. "Friday you will be our sentinel." "At your service." "Ready." 2. And the 5 of them start walking together. Play the music. Until they reached the building where they were greeted by more than 50 ninjas. "Let's get started." Cracking near knuckles, Steve quickly ran out, kicking several people there. Everyone went for their own enemy.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.